Hello, dear friends, and welcome to Storytime. Today, we are going to read a tale from a faraway land of Indonesia. Indonesia is an amazing country. It doesn't have its own landmass. It consists of 17,500 islands, with its people, 250 million people, scattered all over. It straddles two oceans, Pacific and Indian, and its fishermen fish and boat. It is a land of amazing culture, a beautiful climate, and beautiful people, but also much conflict and poverty and strife. Indonesia's history goes far, far back and has its own amazing stories. Indonesia is known for its fantastic art and breathtaking architecture. The tale we're going to read today is called Where Tides Come From. Of course, tides are important to people of Indonesia because they're surrounded by water. They live on a bunch of islands, a lot of islands. So, of course, the life there is driven by tides. And so here is the tale. When the moon pauses high in the sky over the Indonesian coast, as the Indonesian isles sail through the boundless ocean like giant ships, old fishermen look up and say, "A great tide is coming today," and squint, trying to make out two familiar shapes among the lunar spots. Here's how it all began. A long time ago, there lived on the island of Java a peasant by the name of Cayman. He had a small rice paddy and he worked there day and night. Growing rice is hard work. One must always watch the delicate green sprouts whose roots sit in liquid mud and make certain they don't dry out in the sun should the water go away or suffocate without air should the water cover them up entirely. Lots of work. In order to control the water, one must carefully watch the clay rolls surrounding the fields and either make passages in them to let out the water or block them with clay once again. But Cayman was stubborn and strong and did his job well. He always had plenty of rice and was just beginning to think of bringing a wife into his house when a rat appeared in his hut. She made a burrow in the corner and started thinking how to trick the man. Thus, on the very first evening, she came out of the burrow, settled on her hind paws, and stretching her gross bare tail across the clay floor, addressed the peasant. "Listen," she said, petting her thin belly and twitching her delicate pink nose. She could smell the rice. "I want to make an agreement with you. You and I are living in this hut together, which means we must divide everything in it in half. Let's start with the rice." "Ah, you revolting creature! You've only just stepped over my threshold and you dare speak such things! No one invited you here. Go away, I'll throw at you the shovel I use for digging clay and split you in half." "As you wish, but you might regret your words," replied the rat, and went back to her burrow, dragging her gross bare tail across the clay floor. The following day Cayman rose pagi, which means in the morning in the language of Indonesia. But the rat rose pagi-pagi. That's what Indonesians say when they mean very early in the morning. And so the rat rose pagi-pagi and ran to the field before the peasant. When Cayman came there, he saw there were holes in all the clay rolls, and the water was gone. The peasant was stubborn. He fixed them all up and filled the paddy with water. But the rat ruined the rolls again overnight. This continued for several days, and Cayman realized he could not defeat the wicked animal. Then he decided to become a fisherman, sold his paddy, bought a boat, and wove a large, strong net out of oak bark. But the rat was ready, and when Cayman went out to sea, she snuck onto the boat and hid between the baskets the peasant intended for the fish. Once out at sea, he cast the net and started pulling it in. The net was so big and Cayman so strong, not only the fish ended up in the net, but the ocean itself shifted from its place and, following the net, flooded the shores. The people of the Indonesian isles, who had never seen a tide before, retreated in horror from the advancing water, taking away their livestock and moving their fires. Indeed, quite a lot of fish ended up in the net, but the rat crept up and gnawed through one of the ropes Cayman was pulling. The net fell into the water, the fish fled, and the ocean pulled away from the shores, returning to the place appointed for it. Cayman tried fishing several days in a row. Every time the troubled ocean flooded the shores, but the rat gnawed through the rope and freed the fish, and with it the ocean. Once he understood who was ruining his net, Cayman called on the gods, malam, which means in the evening. "Oh, you shakers of earth and keepers of heaven," he exclaimed, "I beg you, make a judgment for me and this revolting animal, or if you cannot do this, help me get out of here." We must mention he picked a bad time by addressing the gods in the evening, because the gods, like people, get tired by evening and their mood goes sour. Indeed, the gods did not bother sorting out who was right and who was wrong in this argument. They ordered the wind to fulfill the fisherman's last request. The wind flew to the ground, turned into an enormous vortex, grabbed clouds, water, and sand on the shore, pulled them together, mixed them, and tossed them onto the moon, which happened to hang right above the big island of Java. Along with the water and sand, it sent to the moon the boat with the fisherman and his net, as well as the rat, who kept hiding among the baskets. That is why not only the old fisherman, but every boy and girl from the island of Java, every man and woman say to each other when they see the moon, "Malam, malam," late in the evening, and make out the dark spots. Look, they're still there, the fisherman, his boat, and the rat. And if a visitor asks what the rat and the fisherman are doing on the moon, the Javanese reply, "Don't you know? Cayman casts his net into the ocean from the moon every night. He pulls it up, and the ocean rises and floods the shore. But the rat never sleeps. As soon as the fisherman turns away, she runs up, gnaws through one of the ropes, and the ocean returns into place. After that, the fisherman goes to fix the net, and the rat once again hides in the boat. This happens every day. You visitors call it a tide, but we know the fisherman and the rat still don't want to yield to one another." And that is the end of the tale from Indonesia about the origin of tides. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm hoping to see you again. Have a great day.